Nigeria is too important to live in the hands of government. I didn't wait for government before doing Andela. I didn't wait for government before doing Flutterwave. I didn't wait for government before building Future, before funding Move, before doing Temai. I've not received a dime of government money in my entire life. So I don't know why I will wait for government now. Been doing this for 12 years without government. So I am my own government.
That's Iyin Aboyeji, founding partner of Future Africa, co-founder of Andela and Flutterwave, builder of Etana, Africa's first digital special economic zone, one of the backers of Move and over 100 startups. He's the founder of Lend to Earn, preparing millions of Africans for the AI economy.
Africa's biggest export has always been talent for 400 years.
Today on Broken Signals we ask, is education a tool for economic upliftment, or is that too optimistic? Good to have you, E.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so first of all, this is a live recording of the Broken Signals podcast, where we chat with people shaping the future of technology and AI in the present world. Mr. E, it's quite impressive what you've done and what you keep doing, from Andela to Flutterwave to more recently Lend to Earn. With Future Africa Accelerate is quite a lot. I know I do work with your team as well on other things. And I think the very first thing I want to ask you is why Lend to Earn? Because I know it's not as public currently, or has wide currently, but why Lend to Earn?
Well, it's thank you first of all for having me here. It's always encouraging to see people like you bring the ecosystem together. Now, the challenge with my job primarily is to be an ecosystem builder. And so what that means is that you have to, almost like a prophet, you peer into the future and figure out what is the ecosystem going to need in 5 to 10 years to remain competitive. And one of the biggest challenges that we are going to face in the face of the platform shift that is AI, and I'm sure everybody is very tired of hearing about AI at this point because it must have been mentioned too many times already. But one of the biggest challenges we'll have is talent, because the talent formula that got us here just simply can't take us through to the platform shift. 12 years ago, when we built Andela, right, we were building Andela for an era where lots of people just didn't have the knowledge of how to build software. Now we have a bigger problem, which is that it wouldn't matter whether or not people know how to build software. But what will matter is that they understand how to work with machines. They understand how to orchestrate through artificial intelligence and direct machines to actually do their bidding. And it requires a completely different way of thinking that we call computational thinking. And that requires us to re-platform the talent base of the entire ecosystem. And I know that the thing with our ecosystem, it's an amazing ecosystem, but we don't really like doing hard things here. So I figured I would have to dive back into, I guess you could call it entrepreneurship, and go and rebuild the foundations of our talent infrastructure as a people. So, I mean, so far we've had 50,000 people take the test. Now we have about 805 people joining us July 1st, in addition to the 704 that we had join us in February.
Yeah.
So it's a big scale program, and the goal for us by the end of this year, we want to get to 2,500 people in the program, and in the next 3 years, we want to have 10,000 people in the program, and we're going to scale up to over the next 10 years to 1 million people. And the goal is we need to build the world's largest AI engineering workforce, so that Africa has a fighting chance of being able to collaborate with machines to deliver exceptional outcomes that keep our people relevant in the new digital age of AI.
Okay. Well done. That's impressive. The numbers. So you probably would know that a few weeks back, JAMB had lowered the cutoff mark to enter universities in Nigeria, which is scary, very scary. And for decades, we've told young people that education is the pathway to economic mobility. But now we see graduates struggling while self-taught creators, developers, and founders build global careers. Has education lost its monopoly on opportunity, or are we simply redefining what education means?
I think it's more the latter. The reality of what's happening in education is the education that you pass JAM to access is not relevant in today's world because, what is the use of cramming a bunch of facts when everybody has access to a 27-year-old super smart Oxford PhD student that never forgets in their pockets? The kind of skills that you need to learn now are no longer just about being able to memorize and regurgitate facts. You actually have to learn how to solve problems. And so much of our education system is just beginning to wake up to that reality. And that's why you're seeing the people who can solve problems, the creators, the builders, the engineers. Those are the people who are building global careers, because the world is no more looking for somebody who can tell us what 1.1 plus 1 is equals to 2 as fast as possible without the use of a calculator. The world is looking for you to apply that knowledge to do something useful.
Yeah.
So I think, and my view is, look, there's no question that education system in Nigeria is approaching a moment of reckoning, where the vast majority of young people in the next 3 to 5 years will look at a university education, a traditional university education, and say, thank you, but no thank you. So we're already seeing that in our program. The vast majority of people in our program do not want to go to university.
I see.
And they just graduate rather than spend 2
But you
years.
encourage that?
We accept them.
Okay.
We accept them. You don't have to go to a university to be in our program. In fact, what we're even doing is we're going to invade the universities, which is actually more exciting. We're actually going to work inside of the universities. Our next 75 centers are planned inside universities. So you may get admission to a university, but you probably spend most of your time learning AI. And that's what we're planning to do, to be able to get to the kind of scale we need to be economically significant in the AI workforce.
But don't you think that could cause problems in the longer run when, because one of the expectations of the tertiary institution is to bring is to build into people, painstakingly, by the way, some self-developing skill sets, social skill sets, and a few other.
They will build those skills.
Okay.
They will build those skills. And in the universities too. I don't see how the universities lose, because, the reality of Nigeria is we've got 230 universities, each of them with 100 hectares of land. You can't get better real estate. you understand? So the truth of the matter is we can't do this without the universities.
Yes.
But the idea that you're going to have a professor teaching you calculus from the front of the classroom, I think that's done and gone.
Yeah.
The reality is now it's going to be about how quickly can you work with your peers to learn the content, the materials online, and then how can you apply those skills in a meaningful way and collaborate with other people and think through problems critically and solve problems that are right in front of you.
Okay, makes sense. Let's talk about Andela. I know I saw a few Andela folks coming to 8 a.m., which is pretty nice. But you helped prove that African talent could compete globally through Andela, with AI dramatically reducing barriers to learning technical skills. What becomes the real differentiator? Is it skill acquisition? Is it problem-solving ability? Or is it access to opportunity?
I think it's the computational thinking and self-belief. It's increasingly the barriers to access to opportunity are coming down. There's so much that you can access with just an internet connection and a mobile phone. But the challenge you're really going to have is that a lot of people don't know what's possible, and so they won't reach for it. And second of all, many people have not been taught how to break down problems into components and solve them.
But isn't that what the schools are meant for?
Is that what they're doing? I don't know. You have to tell me. I haven't been in a school in a long time. But I don't know if that's what they're doing. If they're doing that, then kudos to them. But if that's not what they're doing, then they'll have to change what they're doing. But I think that maybe the last thing, to be honest, is infrastructure. I think when I think about the barriers, now that we're operating at such a humongous scale across the country, the reality is, it costs me more to get connectivity to a place like Otukpo in Benue State than it costs me to do the same in Lagos. And until that changes, that is probably the remaining barrier to opportunity. how quickly can we get connectivity across the country? And then, maybe the other small things, things like compute. I'm not talking about AI compute, but just like being able to access a laptop. I know folks like Credit Core are trying to do some really cool stuff in that respect, but it costs, typical laptop will cost you ₦1 million. How many young people? I mean, most young people are earning somewhere around 100 to 200,000 naira. So that's five months to a year of wages just to be able to buy a laptop. So there's a lot of work we have to do, and I think this is where perhaps the government can be useful, but where it remains to be seen.
Okay. So many people worry that, and I think this is no stranger to you, but they worry that AI is going to take away jobs. And a more interesting question, though, is who owns the AI systems, data platforms that create value? Are they the ones that, would take the jobs? And also, do you believe Africa's biggest AI challenge is talent development, or is it ensuring that Africans own meaningful stakes in the AI economy rather than being labor to it?
Yeah, I think what happens when you have a platform shift and diffuse technology platforms is that, the people, first of all, start by trying to acquire stuff because that's the easy thing to do. I'm going to build a mega billion-dollar data center. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But ultimately, what it boils down to is the talent owns the knowledge, and the knowledge determines who wins. And my view on AI is that if Africa can get itself together to actually build the largest AI workforce, right, we wouldn't lose any jobs. Because you see, AI primarily attacks knowledge work, and only 6% of Africans do knowledge work, right? And we are the youngest continent, so more than half of the population is under the age of 18. So we have time to actually train young people to be able to work with machines. So if we become the largest AI workforce in the world, we can actually do to services and knowledge work what China did to manufacturing over the last 50 years.
But wouldn't you say we playing in the manufacturing means we have stakes in the AI economy? When if we now come from the angle of the workforce of talent, are we not simply labor to it?
Not really, because the thing about AI that's different from every other thing, including manufacturing, is that AI compounds knowledge, right? So again, the idea is for us to really understand how to build the AI systems, because most of these AI systems are actually going to be sovereign. I mean, I recently read an incredible piece by Satya Nadella, where he was basically saying, look, at the end of the day, AI is not sustainable today because it's not building into an ecosystem. It's building into an echo chamber. And ultimately, what it's going to need to happen is companies need to have the capabilities to build their own sovereign capabilities and compound knowledge. Now, who's going to actually do that work? It's not going to be all the young people in America that are refusing to use AI because they're afraid it's going to take their jobs. There's going to be young people in Africa who lean into AI, figure out how to help large companies and enterprises who can't afford to give all their knowledge of thousands of years away to Claude and ChatGPT and all that. We help them build sovereign AI stacks, right, using open source alternatives. And we train those stacks ourselves. Yeah. And it's something that I keep explaining to people. We built this AI thing, right? If you didn't have the likes of Sama Source and Scale AI out of Kenya actually training AI, and even here closer to home, Hugo, you wouldn't have AI as you know it today. So we trained a lot of these models. So we can do it again. But this time, can we do it higher up in the stack, right? Rather than just being, trainers, Can we actually use it to build stuff, to orchestrate? Can we actually start build engineering as opposed to just being operators or just being tagging, objects? So there's that whole opportunity that we can tap into. I actually think AI is going to create more jobs, right, than it takes away.
If a 17-year-old came and met you and said, you know what should I be learning now?
I'll still say you should learn AI. What is important to understand is that labor is compensated by productivity, not by effort. I like to use the example of somebody who pushes a wheelbarrow. The guy pushing a wheelbarrow in New York will earn more than the guy who's pushing a wheelbarrow in Nigeria. Why? Because of the value of the things they're buying.
So a few years back, we had the story in Kenya where they were using, I think that was Sama,
Yeah.
who had that eye thing, and they were having to pay folks $2 to come scan their retinas.
World source or something.
Exactly. And then we've seen that story. We've also seen the story of when, Mark was paying Kenyans, I think, $1 an hour to be able to train their AI systems and whatnot. So when it comes to scale of AI deployment from a workforce perspective, what we've seen is these global institutions having to, will I say, leverage the talent, but not paying them.
Yeah, I think it was because, at that time, a lot of the platforms were not open source. What happened in our industry is that the moment DeepSeek was released, the whole world changed, right? Because what that meant was everybody had the same power, right? You could build your own chat GPT without spending all that money. So, and today we are experimenting with a lot of people who are actually trying to build their own models for their own companies, for their own instances, for their own use cases. So I don't think, was that kind of labor was possible many years ago. Now it's by choice. You know what I mean? You can decide that you want to actually build on Llama. You can decide you want to build on DeepSeek. There's so many open source models you can pick from and build on top of. You don't actually need to slave for anybody and to create value from AI.
Okay, so if things are becoming more open source, especially, technical talents, where I can go to Claude and get it to build for me an app, in a few minutes, right? I have two questions. Now, what is the labor shortage there? That is one. And two is, if a 17-year-old came and met you and said, what should I be learning now? Because you've told us that school is not giving us the right trainings or the right, learnings. So what should I now start learning? Is it coding? Is it farming? Or what should it be?
Yeah, look, I'll still say you should learn AI. What is important to understand is that labor is compensated by productivity, not by effort, right? So, I like to use the example of somebody who pushes a wheelbarrow, right? A wheelbarrow is a wheelbarrow everywhere else in the world, right? But you know what? The guy pushing a wheelbarrow in New York will earn more, right, in real dollar terms than the guy who's pushing a wheelbarrow in Nigeria. Why? Because of the value of the things they're buying. But a wheelbarrow is still a wheelbarrow. There's nothing that's really changed about the wheelbarrow. And I think it's the same thing with AI. At the end of the day, cost is going to be a massive differentiator. And large companies who today seem to be managing onshoring, they're going to wake up one day and say, I can't be globally competitive unless this talent that is helping me build the AI comes from somewhere else. And that's when you're going to see people say, okay, even the AI engineers can get it. Because if I can get an AI engineer in Nigeria for 10 times less, why I would just hire here, right? Yeah. And that would factor into the cost of Claude and all that. So I think we just need to build, like I said, all Africa needs to do is build the world's largest AI workforce, and we own the space. This is exactly what India understood during the dot-com era, right? Right before we moved over to the internet, they figured if we get our engineers to be the best in the world at databases, we own the internet. And the honest truth is, majority of what you see on the internet has touched India one way or the other.
Yeah. And the good thing is that the Indians got it on two fronts, the engineering and then the customer support. And I think they've been consistent with that over the past, decade. And you've seen companies in Africa try to rebuild that system, with more local African talent. And there is somehow, we've had some that are doing quite well on the customer success bit in Kenya. Do you think that opportunity that India had when it had it is long gone and will never come back?
Well, I can't imagine that it's still there or will be there for much longer, because the honest truth of what's happening in the space is that any process-driven work that machines can do and that humans can teach machines to do is already going to be done by AI. Now, where it gets tricky and interesting is identifying those tasks. being able to fix errors, being able to set goals for the AI systems. And the reality is, India is in the $130 billion outsourcing industry. Are they really going to nuke that industry by advancing innovation as fast as they should? Meanwhile, in Africa, we don't have anything to protect, right? When, we can teach our young people how to do it. Now, the challenge with Africa is we don't believe in scale. We don't do anything at scale. I mean, for a decade, so many people criticized Alhaji Dangote for trying to build the world's largest single train refinery because they just felt Africa shouldn't be building the world's largest single train refinery, right? We should be building something smaller. But we live in a world where scale is the only thing that matters. What Africa needs to understand is that its survival, its very economic survival as far as jobs are concerned, will rely on its ability to produce talent at scale, because that's when you control the economics. Anybody who doesn't own something at scale can't control the economics of whatever it is they're trying to build.
Yeah. Okay. So the AFCFTA promises a single market of over 1 billion people. Yet talent still faces friction across borders. Could Africa's greatest exports the next decade be talent rather than oil, minerals, or agriculture? And what policies do you think would be required to make talent a true continental trade asset?
Look, Africa's biggest export has always been talent. For 400 years, we exported slaves and we exported diaspora. I'm just being completely frank, right? Like if you take a reading of the total value of sports and net worth of all the sports and entertainment and Black people basically in the US, I think you're going to end up with a number far above $1 trillion, right? So Africa has been exporting talent, perhaps more valuable talent than it has ore and all these other stuff that they try to tell us is valuable, but really isn't. Yeah. So I generally feel like Africa just has to lean into it, and AI is going to help us turn our talent to intelligence. Because we have this habit of exporting raw materials, including raw human beings, as opposed to the refined product, right? So if we have the capacity to turn our talent into knowledge products, then we don't have to export the raw talent anymore. We can add value to it and export agents that can earn money while we're sleeping. You have to understand the problem the rest of the world has is that they're aging. Yeah. So because the rest of the world is aging, they need productivity more than even we do, right? So we're going to have to export that to the rest of the world, and AI is just going to make it easier for us to do that.
But I believe that even being lent to end, you've probably figured that there is some room, or there would be a potential of exploitation with the workforce. So how do you plan to navigate that?
I'm not sure that is a concern. But we've built it in the sense that, so the way Learn to Earn works, no matter what you learn or how long you learn, the way we've designed the program is that you're never going to pay more than $10,000 to us, right? And really, it exists only as a way to pass on the gift of learning that we're giving you, because we understand that most of the most talented people can't afford the tuition. So that is one. Two, ultimately, we're putting you to work ourselves. And that's why we're training you. We're training you to put you to work and to get you an opportunity to work with whoever else you need to work with. So I can't imagine you could be exploiting somebody who you're giving a very, very valuable skill at your cost. Yeah. I think the language of exploitation is something that the West and the left used to deceive us. Because the truth of the matter is no country has ever achieved prosperity without working their way up. You don't arrive there. The Chinese had to work their way up. The Filipinos had to work their way up. The Indians had to work their way up. So the idea that Africa can get there through a false perception of rights is a funny philosophy that doesn't have any bearing in reality. So, especially in the age of AI, the fact of the matter is, if a machine is more productive than you, then there's no work for you to do.
That's all.
The only way to be useful is if you're more productive than a machine.
Okay, but building end-to-end, what has been your biggest challenge?
There are many challenges, but I'll say perhaps the biggest thing is definitely the infrastructure required to educate people at scale. We live in a country that adores waste in education. So we have all these campuses without connectivity, all these computers from last century that haven't been upgraded or even touched. We have the resources to build a 1 million person AI workforce in 12 months, but convincing people that those seats are better filled than empty is a Herculean task. And that's why we're very grateful for the partners that agree with us and work with us. We're a society that adores waste. Otherwise, when I think about other parts of the world, like in India, for example, they have a 1 million campaign and they want to do it in 5 years. Now, my bet is, even if they achieve it, we still have room, because there's just going to be so much more that we can do because we're younger. But at the same time, there's no reason why this is international effort.
Yeah.
Where our society doesn't work that way.
But the thing about the Indians is that they lobby for what they want. Like, they lobby across regions and across markets. You're seeing the Prime Minister himself in Canada sign a talent deal with the Europeans. You're seeing him in the US. And you get to see that, or I think it's gotten this way, or it's been this good for them because they champion it themselves. It's not it's a private sector thing and they're just trying to, have some outsourcing gigs here and there. Because what I'm trying to think about is, with the work you do with Lent and the scale that you imagine, does it mean that you probably have to get the president of Nigeria to travel with you to another country to you get it? So, because they champion it, and I believe that has been the result we see is because of the championing, the lobbying that they do. So the scale that you're looking for, do you think that's something private sector would give you, or do you think it has to be a region?
Well, look, I have to build irrespective of government. That's my view. I can't. Nigeria is too important to live in the hands of government. So my view is, we do whatever needs to be done, whether we have the support of the government or not. Of course, it would be nice if we had the support of the government. And to be fair to the government, they've built the 3MTT program, and there have been many attempts to try to do something. But my view is, if we wait for government, I didn't wait for government before doing Andela. I didn't wait for government before doing Flutterwave. I didn't wait for government before building Future, before funding Move, before doing Temai. I've not received a dime of government money in my entire life. Not as revenue, not as investment, so I don't know why I will wait for government now. I've been doing this for 12 years without government. So if government comes to partner, by all means, that's fine. But I'm not waiting for government.
Okay.
I am my own government.
Okay. What do you think, and this is you speaking to, say, the regulators in education, the guys who are the spearheaders of it, what would you be your advice to them? Or if you met them face to face, what would you tell them straight to their faces?
Look, the problem Nigeria has when it comes to government and regulation is there's a lot of theorists that are making decisions. And what I always tell regulators is, come talk to people who've done this stuff at scale. We have different view. We're not here to sell you theories and write you papers and all that. We are battle-hard, battle-tested people who've been in the field, worked our butts off to get the country to where it is talent-wise. there has to be respect for that kind of contribution from local entrepreneurs. And I feel like, with the regulators, they don't spend enough time with people like me. That's my view. And it's their loss, to be honest, because we have a lot to share. We're very patriotic, and we want to help. But if every time fly to Abuja, I mean, I've stopped going because it's at my cost, it's a waste of my time, and nothing ever comes out of it. So at some point, when we're engaged in this sovereign warfare that is AI, there has to be the level of seriousness required to say who has done this before and at scale, and then engage those people because they don't have anything to prove, as opposed to gathering theorists and trying to make it work with theorists, trial and error and all that. So that's my view. My view is they need to talk to people like us.
Okay, so talk to people like him. All right, but it's been great chatting with you, E. Always amazing speaking with you. And yes, I do wish you luck with End to End and all you do. Thank you.
Thank you.